If you're like me, you may have heard of this movie before, and that's probably thanks to the attention Christian Bale brought to it with his drastic commitment to it. And if you're like me, you probably never watched it until now, because you didn't really know what it was about. And all you could picture was skinny Christian Bale posing as a ghost and looking like a skeleton.
Oh my god!
So well, this movie goes on like this. We have Trevor Reznik, a guy who works as a machinist in a factory. He lives alone and often sees a prostitute by the name of Stevie, with whom he seems to have a closer relationship than just sex. He claims not to have been able to sleep in a year, so he goes every night to the airport's 24-hour coffee shop to get coffee and pie, and to flirt with Maria, the barista. You know, for a guy who looks like that, he still has some touch with the ladies. Okay, yeah, he is Christian Bale, but you get it. The landlord, his co-workers, Stevie and Maria worry about him and often ask him if he's doing okay, to which he replies,
I look okay.
If you were any thinner, you wouldn't exist.
His boss makes him take a drug test due to his appearance. He agrees and then he goes out for a smoke. Once in his car, he starts falling briefly asleep when he hears a guy talking next to him, someone he's never seen around. They talk a little bit and he tells Trevor he's the new guy. He's replacing someone else who got fired because they got arrested for something. He doesn't question this and goes on with his life. The days go by, and Trevor starts noticing that strange things are happening around him. He finds post-it notes with a hangman drawn on them, and every morning a new letter and body part are written on it. Or drawn, whatever. He knows he's not doing well in the head, so he doesn't report a break-in to the police. He just asks the landlord lady if she's seen someone hanging around, and she doesn't know anything, so he just goes on with his life. One morning at work, a co-worker named Miller asks Trevor for help with something. Trevor agrees, but during the process he gets distracted as he sees the new guy on the other side of the factory doing strange gestures at him. He accidentally presses an activation button on the machine, and the machine starts swallowing up Miller's arm. Trevor calls for help, and several co-workers approach to assist, but it's in vain. His hand gets completely severed in the machine. Trevor gets investigated by the company to know what happened exactly. He explains how he got distracted by the new guy, but the managers act concerned as they explain that there isn't a new guy and that no one has been arrested. Trevor cannot believe what he's hearing, and his paranoia starts growing as he believes his co-workers are gaslighting him into thinking he's going crazy. He still sees the new guy one more time and decides to follow him into a bar where they get to talking. The guy's name is Ivan, and as soon as he goes to the bathroom, Trevor searches his wallet, looking for proof of his existence to show in the company. He quickly finds a picture of the guy next to a co-worker and keeps it. Meanwhile, he keeps going to the airport's coffee shop, and during the conversation, the barista tells him she'll be with her kid during Mother's Day, and that she's gonna take him to the amusement park to celebrate. On the other hand, he tells her stories about how his mother used to take him there when he was a child too. And after this, Maria decides to invite him to the party too. The date seems to be going well, until she gets a call and tells Trevor to take her son to another game. They get to a dark ride, and after briefly explaining to the kid what the ride is about, they jump in. At first, the place displays some corny decorations that wouldn't scare anyone. Even Trevor makes fun of them to amuse the little boy. But as they get deeper into the cave, the decorations become creepy. Very creepy. Some of them feel personal to Trevor, who starts growing scared. Once in the middle, there are two roads diverged, which allow the passengers to choose a way to continue the ride. One of them is called the Road to Salvation, and the other one is the Highway to Hell. Trevor tells the kid to choose the Road to Salvation because at this point he feels kinda nervous and terrified. But do you think he listened to him? Hell no. He went straight to hell. Inside, the visions are way scarier. The kid starts convulsing with his eyes rolled as if he was being possessed or something like that. Trevor takes him out of the ride and desperately calls for help. The mother appears out of nowhere and tells him that his son is epileptic, and the flashing lights probably caused the episode. She calms Trevor down and tells him not to worry, her son was gonna be okay. They get to her place and talk for a while. Trevor goes to the kitchen for more wine, and notices a card left for Maria on her fridge by her son. We get transported to his apartment, and we see how he compares the drawings and the letters of Maria's card to the ones he finds on his own fridge. At this point in the movie, he has tried to complete the hand game with several possible answers, like Tucker, Mother, or Miller. but he isn't convinced with any of them. The next day, he goes to work and sees Miller retiring from the company. He's taking his last check and settlement, and he's saying goodbye to everyone. Trevor approaches him and apologizes for everything. Miller acts passive-aggressively at first,
Some way I could repay you.
Well, for starters, you could give me your left arm.
but then jokes with him, reassuring him by saying that it doesn't matter and that the settlement was worth an arm. Trevor then shakes his hand and gets back to work. He puts his arms inside the metal machine and all of a sudden it turns on, the same way it did to Miller but way worse because his whole arms are stuck inside it. He starts screaming and calling for help, but no one comes at first. He desperately grabs a tool and sticks it inside to stop the machine. When his co-workers do come, he makes a scene and blames them for trying to take revenge on Miller's accident. He even tries to show the picture he took from Ivan's wallet, but couldn't find it at the moment. Then his manager arrives to see what's going on, but Trevor pushes him and finally gets fired. Everyone calls him crazy and he leaves. After this, Trevor goes to find Ivan at the bar but doesn't succeed. He goes to see Stevie and tells her about everything that's going on. They share a conversation where she tells him she'd like to stop working as a prostitute and settle with him, and he likes the idea. He then goes out to Miller's house. Miller seems happy. He even invites him in and shows him the car he's bought with the settlement's money. Trevor tells him how he almost got killed at work and how he thought it was something planned by him. He also blames him for the notes and for hiding the strange guy. Miller kicks him out of the house, and as Trevor leaves the property, he sees Ivan in the red car staring at him. He looks at Miller searching for validation, but he just seems confused. Trevor jumps in the car and follows Ivan up and down the street. He gets close enough to see his license plates and then loses him. He goes to the DMV and tries to get Ivan's address, but they tell him that unless there has been a crime committed and unless he reports it to the police, there is nothing they can do. So he goes to the street and jumps into a moving car with the purpose of getting injured and then reporting a hit and run to the police. And he does all this, but when the search results arrive, the police tell him that the plate he saw was his own, and it belonged to a red Firebird he reported as totaled in an accident almost a year ago. The police officer tells Trevor he's got some explaining to do, because filing a fake report is illegal. So Trevor just runs off to the street and escapes. He even gets into the sewer, and once more gets to choose between two paths. The right path was lighter, but someone was approaching, so he chose the left path filled with rats and uncertainty. Once out, he goes to his apartment, but notices the police outside. Scared, he goes to Stevie's apartment. He tells her he was a victim of a hit and run, and very sweetly she cares for him, cleans him up, and prepares food for him. He tells her she's the only one he trusts, and while he's dressing up, he notices Ivan's picture lying there in a small frame. He then explodes in rage and tells her she's a traitor, and accuses her of plotting against him with this guy. Trevor runs out of her place and goes straight to the airport to talk to Maria. But when he gets there, he finds someone else. He asks for Maria, but the barista tells him there is no Maria, and that she's the only waitress there. She even tells him how he always goes there to stare at his coffee without saying a word, and that she's surprised to see him talking for once. He leaves, but not before making a scene where he yells at everyone around him, telling them they're all being paid by Ivan to torment him.
Huh? Let's have a laugh on Trevor! Say
In the parking lot, he sees the 1969 red Firebird and starts chasing him all around the city until it finally stops at Trevor's apartment. Yeah, he could have just waited there, right? Okay. Ivan gets inside the building, and Trevor notices that the guy's not alone. He's accompanied by a kid, Nicholas, Maria's son. Surprised, he follows them up and reaches his apartment. He gets inside and starts looking around in silence until he hears a sound coming from the bathroom. He enters and faces Ivan, who casually tells him that the kid lies dead in the bathtub. Trevor fights Ivan to death by slitting his throat. He then checks the bathtub, but no one is in there. He goes to the kitchen and finally opens the fridge, which was spilling out blood and had a terrible odor for weeks. As he does this, dead fish come out, and it seems the odor brought to him a revelation which showed us that Ivan's picture was actually himself sometime before when he was still looking okay. He then wraps Ivan's corpse in a rug and takes him to the docks. When he's about to get rid of the body, he sees someone approaching and throws the carpet downhill. But the carpet opens up and reveals that no one is actually there. The man approaching flashes him with the light and asks him who he is. A terrified Trevor looks at him and sees Ivan, alive and laughing. Tormented, Trevor goes back home and sees a note he wrote to himself which said, "Who are you?" He then answers, "I know who you are." And while looking at the mirror, he remembers what happened. We see a flashback where Trevor, in good shape, drives the 1969 red Firebird. He distracts himself while lighting a smoke and runs over a kid. The boy he imagines as Nicholas, the son of Maria. Scared, he runs away. We go back to his apartment, and in front of the hanged note, he finally writes down the correct answer: killer. The next day, the landlord lady comes to Trevor's apartment and finds everything packed in boxes. She asks him where he is going, and he tells her he's moving out. We see him driving next to Ivan, and when he finds himself again in front of a two-road choice, the road to the airport or the road to downtown, he chooses downtown and hands himself into the police. Once in custody, the officer tells him they'll have to record his statement. Trevor agrees to do it after he sleeps, as it is the only thing he wants to do. He falls asleep and we see a short flashback of what happened right after the accident, and finally the credits roll. Now this movie reminds me of Crime and Punishment, and I think it was made on this basis. If you look closely inside of the creepy dark ride, you can see a neon light sign where Crime and Punishment is written on it, as a foreshadow of what this movie was about. A character eaten by guilt who after suffering for a while decides to turn himself in. Even Stevie as a prostitute girlfriend is a reference to what Sonia was to Raskolnikov. I think Ivan is a representation of his conscience and the image he had of himself after the accident. Someone reckless and careless who left his past behind with no repercussions. And Trevor starts seeing him when he cannot live with the truth anymore, when he starts forgetting what he did. So he decides to chase him as trying to come to terms of what the right thing to do was. He donates everything he's got to start fresh, and liberates himself as he finally chooses the right path. Because going downtown to hand himself in is the road to salvation he was looking for. And as the filter of the movie changes to a lighter, less depressive one, so does his conscience, as he's finally able to sleep again. However, there is another theory. A much darker one, I must say. This one consists on the fact that Trevor is dead all along, and now remains on the purgatory until he acknowledges what the right thing to do is, and then finally be pardoned on the eyes of God. This theory is sustained by several factors. For one, it is implied that he died on a car accident right after he ran over the child. Then he must relive the traumatic event where he hurt someone else over and over in different ways till he understands why he must take the correct path, the road to salvation, and be able to rest in peace. In this theory, Ivan could be an angel or a devil trying to guide him through this process. And finally, Trevor's exaggerated physique could represent a broken soul looking for redemption. I don't really know many cases like that in real life, and maybe guilt eats you like this. But this seems like a clear indication that Trevor is not among us. Or as the French rap group GTF once said in their 2019 song Me Gusta, "Je suis à 2 pas de la terre, à 2 pas de la mort, à 2 pas de l'enfer, possédé par un monstre, à 2 pas de l'hypocrisie." What did you think of this movie? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel for more movie reviews and recommendations. See you next time, fellow cinephile.